friends, Hari Om. Today I do the chart analysis of one of America's worst known criminals. His name was Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, a little bit about him. When I was in the States, I did get to know about this fellow through the news channels because those days his case was going on, and he has done unspeakable crimes against gay men of color, Asian and black people. And what he used to do is he used to basically not only kill them on the pretext of spending a night with them and having fun, but he used to dismember their body and throw them in acid. So such was the level of sickness of this fellow. And I just wanted to see basically what makes such a human being turn into a devil. I was always intrigued, and recently I saw a series on him, and it again, it reminded me of the crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer. By the way, for those who don't know, Dahmer is is a name of German descent, so his father must have been German, and of course settled in the US. He was born and brought up in the US, and he was born on 25th of May 1960 at 16:34 hours in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. And he died at a very young age. He was killed in prison by a fellow prisoner at the age of 34 years in Portage, Wisconsin, in the US itself. So now I do his chart analysis. Basically, if you see his chart, he was born to suffer. He has Saturn and Jupiter ill-placed in his 4th house, Ketu ill-placed in his 6th house, Venus ill-placed in his 8th house, Sun enemy positioned in his 9th house, and Rahu in his 12th house. And he has mild Kalsar Dosh, and Saturn and Jupiter fall in between his Rahu and Ketu. The only placement that is worth mentioning that is a bit positive is his Mars and Moon, so he was emotionally very strong. He knew what he was doing. Now during his trial there was some sort of insanity defense, but it fell through rightly because this fellow, he's an ascendant Virgo. He knows what he is doing, practical, grounded. And Mars and Moon in the 7th house means when he wants, he can be very charming. So through the lifestyle that he chose, he was very charming. He got his fellow partners into his apartment, and they were never seen after that. And Sun and Mercury well placed in the 9th house is very rare for a criminal, because this means he was a smooth talker. He talked well. He was not your typical the street fighter kind of a guy. He talked well, and that is the way he charmed through the lives of people whom he later killed. But he was mentally very sick. I'll tell you why. He was born in his Ketu Mahadasha, 6th house Ketu Mahadasha. 6th house is a bad house. It's called the Dush Sthanam. That means the house of enemies. So right from his birth, he went on the wrong track. His parents were his enemies. There was no peace of home. Basically, the home life of this fellow was broken. He was parentless at a very young age. There was no love for him. There was nobody to take care of him. His mother ran away. His father ran away, and he stayed alone at a very young age in his house, empty house. And that's why he killed his first victim, because loneliness is a very big punishment. Now, if that wasn't enough, that was followed by his 8th house Venus Mahadasha, which led to deviousness in his thoughts. And these 20 years from 71 to 91 was the time when he was active, and he killed 16 people, or maybe 17. Because if you read about him, his crime span was from 1978 to 1991 when he was arrested. And this becomes very critical, because you see, as soon as his 8th house Venus Mahadasha ended, he was arrested. Now, we have to shift astrology to be in tune with the current times. So, normally, an ill-placed Venus means trouble from the opposite sex. But when a person is gay, it also means trouble from your love or romantic partners. And that is what happened. He killed them, and he was killed because of them. So his Venus Mahadasha, anyway, the 20 years from 71 till 91 was a period when now 17 is recorded, 17 people, males, he killed. Now God knows how many. Now the investigating agencies in the US, the FBI, and the law enforcement, the local law enforcement are pretty tight. They do a pretty good job. But there was some slip-ups in this case, because his neighbors did complain of foul smell coming from the air conditioning ducts of his house, when he was burning the flesh and all that. But the police looked aside, because there is a component of racism that happens in poor neighborhoods of America and North America and the whole Western world. Basically, if you're poor, the police doesn't take you seriously. So human beings are human beings, folks. They're the same all over the world. And Jeffrey Dahmer got away with a lot of his crimes because of him being a white fella living in a poor black neighborhood. I think he was living in Milwaukee. So now you will notice that as soon as his Venus Mahadasha ended, he was apprehended in 1991. His next Sun Mahadasha was enemy positioned in the 9th house. Now from 6 to 8, he jumps to the 9th house. Now what happened? Sun was enemy position. There was going to be no relief for you, Jeffrey. So he was arrested and he was put in jail. The crime stopped. Now, for a fellow like this, who was living like a subhuman life, jail would have been much more comfortable for him. And he was sentenced. The trial went on. And would you believe it? He was sentenced to more than 900 plus years in prison. He was not sentenced to death because it was determined that he suffered from some sort of serious psychological or mental health issue. I think that is the reason why he was left to rot in jail, basically. But destiny or karma has its own way. On November 28th, 1994, during his Sun Saturn, now his Saturn also plays a role here. Sun is enemy position, Saturn is in the 4th house retrograde, falling in between his Rahu and Ketu. So his Sun Jupiter period before that, he must have created some ruckus or some enmity with somebody in jail. And during his Sun Saturn period, he was killed, bludgeoned to death by a fellow inmate in the prison system itself. And the irony is that he had his Sun Mahadasha till 1997. If he would have survived 3 more years, now he would have spent the rest of his life in prison, but I'm sure he would have found a partner and some peace in prison. But that was not to be. He was not born this life to have any semblance of humanity present in him. Maybe during his formative years, the first year or the second year or the couple, when he was a small child. But he suffered from start to end, and his 34 years of existence was a life wasted. And the way he died, as per our Hindu scriptures and as per what I've been taught, I'm sure his soul would have found immense trouble in finding the next body. And when and if, through the Christian tradition, I don't know, most of the prisoners in the American system are cremated. They're not given a burial so that there's no trace of them, but still they have a religious ceremony, and they would have done something so that his soul rests in peace and gets a good next birth, but I doubt that. He may have been given a horrible body, like that of a cockroach or something like that, if you believe in the Hindu tradition of rebirth. So this is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. It's a very tragic story. Please read about it on my Quora page. I have basically mentioned all this on my Quora page because on seeing the documentary, I was so intrigued by this fellow. And as I said, those days I was living in the US, Canada. I have been through the whole of United States, Canada, Germany, everywhere. And I had followed this story with intrigue. And that is why, his name rang a bell to me. And I remembered his face because they used to show him going in and out of court on live TV news. So please study this and please see what a chart should not be. Hari Om, friends. And these days the auspicious festival of Navratras are going on. May Devi Ma, may Goddess Durga shower her blessings on all of you. May you be filled with peace, prosperity and happiness. This is followed by the Shara, where it is our Hindu festival where good wins over evil. So may the good in you thrive and the evil in you die. And that 20 days after that is one of our major Hindu festivals of Diwali. So wishing you all a happy Diwali. If I don't post a video till then, which is highly unlikely because I have to do a chart analysis for a little girl right now after this. And also that follows the Christian festival of Christmas, which as per Western astrology, they follow the sun, we follow the moon, is also an auspicious time.